All right, Matthew, let's wrap this up with a little news or noise. And, oh, my goodness, breaking news, everybody.
Yeah?
The Lions have put Marvin Jones on IR. Is that news or noise for Lions pass catchers?
Yeah, I think this is news, right? Because it's about Kenny Golladay. Major news about him. Over the last 2 weeks, while Jones has been out, Golladay has seen a 30.6% target share. That's sixth highest in the entire NFL in that span. And get this, in his 6 games with 8 or more targets this year, Golladay averaging over 19 fantasy points per game. Golladay now a borderline wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season. They don't have a lot else there in Detroit. So sorry, Secret Squirrel. It also raises the value of Theo Riddick a little bit as well. Who's next?
All right, next up, Andy Dalton, also placed on IR this afternoon. News or noise for what that means for the Bengals offense?
Yeah, look, I think it's kind of noise for the Bengals because you're probably starting the same few guys as before. You're starting Joe Mixon every week. You're starting Tyler Boyd. And in deeper leagues, maybe you're giving John Ross a shot. Like, Boyd is, it's worth noting about Boyd, right? He did have a great connection with Jeff Driscoll this past Sunday. 5 catches on 5 targets for 62 yards and a score. Driscoll, of course, is the guy who came in for Andy Dalton. He'll be the starting quarterback for the Bengals moving forward. This is a guy that can run a little bit. He rushed for nearly 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns in college, so he could keep the offense moving in a couple of different ways. Driscoll could be somebody that maybe you look at rostering in a super deep 2-quarterback league or something like that. It'll be interesting to see if they bring A.J. Green back. Now the Bengals are 5-6. A.J. Green is over 30 years old, franchise player, looks like a lost season for Cincinnati. Are you bringing back your superstar in a lost season with a backup quarterback? Hard to see, but at the moment, I think it's noise because I don't know that affects what you do fantasy-wise all that much. You're still starting Mixon and Boyd, and we'll see what happens with Driscoll. All right, Secret Squirrel, who's next?
All right, next up, Adam Humphries, 6 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. Now has double-digit fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. Adam Humphries' production, is that news or noise?
Yeah, you know what? I think this is news. Back-to-back games with a touchdown might have gotten your attention, but Humphries has actually been a productive fantasy option for quite some time now. Since week 8, Adam Humphries leads all Buccaneers with 26 receptions. He's averaging 65 yards per game in that span. Now, does he have the big play upside as Chris Godwin or Deshaun Jackson? No, he does not. But his 72% catch rate this season makes for a very high floor. Humphries, a legitimate flex option in deeper leagues. Like if you're in a 12-team, 3-wide receiver league, you could do worse and probably have than Adam Humphries. All right, Secret Squirrel, who's next?
All right, next up, another quiet day for James Conner, who has under 15 carries in each of the Steelers' past 3 games. Still getting you double-digit fantasy points, but not huge numbers that we saw earlier in the season. Conner's lack of touches, is that news or noise?
Believe it or not, I think this is a little bit of news. Look, you're still starting James Conner, okay? But it is concerning that he's averaging just 11 carries over those past 3 games, especially when you think about the fact he was averaging 22 carries per game in the 4 games prior. Since week 10, Steelers are passing at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL, so if that trend continues, it's going to continue to take away from Conner's workload and hurt his TD equity. Look, I'm not panicking. Again, you're still starting James Conner, no-brainer, set it and forget it, but it's certainly something to watch moving forward for this young player and maybe take some out of those top 5 running backs that he's been and more of a lower-end RB1. Who's next?
All right, next up, Larry Fitzgerald found the end zone again and gave you double-digit fantasy points for the 5th straight week. But given his lack of targets, is Fitz's limited volume news or noise?
Well, okay, so this is news in this sense, right? Fitzgerald's production has been considerably better with Byron Leftwich calling the plays, so that's great. But the recent drop in volume is concerning. Touchdowns are nice, of course. But over his last 2 games, Fitz has a combined 6 targets and 53 receiving yards, right? 6 targets in 2 games. And in the 7 games in which he hasn't scored a touchdown this season, Fitzgerald has reached double-digit fantasy points twice. So until his usage increases, he's basically a touchdown-dependent wide receiver 3 for me, which is not what you expect out of Larry Fitzgerald, who volume, up until this date, has always been his calling card. So it's a little weird one for me. I think it's slightly news. All right, Secret Squirrel, who's next?
All right, last one. Carolina Panthers wide receiver DJ Moore is wide receiver 6 over the last 2 weeks with 46.5 fantasy points, better than Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Antonio Brown, and Adam Thielen. News or noise on DJ Moore's production with or without Devin Funchess in the lineup?
Yeah, this is absolutely news. Like, you might think Moore's usage here had a lot to do with Funchess being out, but his role's been increasing steadily for over a while now, right? Over the previous 4 games, Moore and Funchess actually had the exact same target share. And for the season, Moore's catch rate, almost 20% higher than Funchess. I mean, we saw Funchess with those bad drops in Week 11. We know Moore is the far more explosive player. And frankly, I think he's going to be the Panthers' best fantasy wide receiver over the rest of the season. When you think about what DJ Moore does well, get yards after the catch. Norv Turner, what does he like to do? Likes to get guys in space. We see it with Cam Newton. We see it with Christian McCaffrey. And now we're seeing it with DJ Moore. He's a legit wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside for the rest of the season.